Hello, everybody. Daniel Gaines here. This time I got some stuff to show you. Uh, it's going to tie into the claims that I'm making of parental alienation with the documents that CPS themselves have filed with the court. This is from 2004. As you see, it's a legit court document, case number, and everything else. Public record can be looked up. Unfortunately, it's just a summary, so it doesn't have her claims in it, so I'm not going to go through it. Her claims in 2004, which is originally when we divorced, was basically that she was in fear for her and my daughter's well-being and safety, and that I pushed her through her, whatever it was at that time, down the stairs while she was 7 months pregnant. Problem is, we lived in Louisiana at the time, and while she was in Washington filing the paperwork, giving a fake address to the courts and making all these bogus claims, my daughter was with me for the entire 2 weeks. Almost a full week was spent in Illinois visiting my family. The little over second week was spent with me and my daughter alone at our home in Louisiana. She couldn't be too concerned for her daughter's safety if she's all the way in Washington State in Pierce County, Tacoma, University City, or whatever it's called area, and her daughter's all the way in southern Louisiana. But let's continue. This is the Oklahoma restraining order attempt. The first one in 2004 was granted because of a default. I didn't get the court documents until after the court date, so I didn't make an appearance, and it was granted through a default. This one's from 2005. As you can see, blah, blah, blah. It says her claims, the reason why it was needed. The last incident occurred 2005. The physical was in May of 2003. It says Daniel threw Juliette down the stairs in May of 2003 while she was 7 months pregnant. April 2005, Daniel received custody papers and then called Juliette Bustle. She was married to a guy named Brett Bustle at the time, and threatened to come to Oklahoma and kill her and take the child. There were 3 of these calls. She says no weapons used. Don't know if there's any weapons. I had just started a job a couple months before this. This allegedly happened, where I was getting ready to go into the union at this place and making fairly decent money. I wasn't about to screw it up by doing something that stupid. Plus, she lived in Oklahoma. I lived in Granite City, Illinois. And she ended up, shortly after this, a few months after this, summer actually of 2005. As you can see, it was supposed to go to court in April of 2005. But in 2005, I actually drove to Oklahoma. It was a 9.5 hour drive one way to pick up my daughter and brought her back to Illinois for a couple weeks. So she's concerned about all this, but then the same summer, a couple months after this, got kicked. I came and picked up my daughter, drove back home, kept her there for a couple weeks. But anyway, as you see, 4605. That's basically what her claims were. This is just a receipt for the documents. It's basically all her claims were in 2005 was that I threw her down the stairs and that I threatened to kill her and take my daughter. That was what she said in 2005. Now, move forward. 2009, Monterey County, California. Case number and all. Again, public record. It's legit court documents that can all be looked up. You can check into it all you want. No documents were ever filed in Oklahoma in support of this, by the way. That's a common theme that you'll see. No documents were filed in support of her claims in 2009 either in California. Again, public record. It can be looked up. But let's get into this, shall we? This is the fun one, where it starts to get fun. Anyway. So in this one, it's just your basic restraining order crap at this point. As you can see, legit forms. all filled out and everything else. All back in 2009, same case number. Right here, I believe the person in 2, which is me, owns or possesses a gun or a firearm. Yes. She didn't know in 2005, 2009, now she does. Keep in mind, the last time I had seen Juliette or my daughter was the day of my daughter's 4th birthday in 2007. My daughter was born in 2003. She turned 4 in 2007. The day of her 4th birthday was the last time I had seen her. So 2 years after, or a year and a half, let's be fair, a year and a half after the last time I had seen Juliette, she now knows I have a weapon. Date of the most recent abuse, November 2008 to present. Telephone call, she says. He called and threatened to send me a dead dog's head. He calls and texts almost daily threatening to take my daughter. He threatens to show up on my doorstep at my daughter's school, or to have a friend of his show up and just follow me. He says, you'll never know where I'll be. I still was working at the union job. I hadn't spoken to her or contacted her in a long time, a year and a half. And then she's saying all that, when she actually reached out to me first, and the only things I had contacted her about was telling her that I would like to speak to my child, which I'll get into in a later video, but the courts and this court in California actually told me allowed me to have phone calls with my daughter, but of course Juliette kept telling my daughter to say, I don't want to talk to you, and then she just quit answering the phone and everything else altogether. But again, the police didn't come. The police never come, you'll notice. Watch. Her name, I'm the person in 2. Second most recent abuse, January to August of 2004. Okay, January to August of 2004. January to August of 2004. Melissa Roth. Keep that name in mind. You'll hear that later on in other videos. Multiple, actually. Let's see. He called and threatened to kill me and my roommate and to beat us with a baseball bat, slash our tires, and knife us. A restraining order was granted in Washington State. She lived in Washington. I lived in Illinois. It was after I got served the restraining order in late January, early February, and left the house in Louisiana that she went back to Washington a couple weeks after that. So it couldn't have happened in January if she was living in Louisiana in February. Or at least whenever I got told I had to leave the house was in February. So she didn't officially move back until some point in February of 2004. But January, April of 2005, January of 2004. On that one, she said, I threatened the use of a knife, a baseball bat, and a gun. But yet, I think this actually does state that in here. I could be wrong. Oh, damn. I'm wrong. That sucks. Okay, I stand corrected. My apologies. But either way, a knife and a baseball bat, blah, blah, blah. All right? So then we go to 2007, December of 2006 to March of 2007. Her and the guy she was married to at this point in 2009, Christian Freeman, she married Christian Freeman while legally still married to Brett Bussell. And then when she divorced Brett Bussell, he was overseas on a military deployment, and she divorced him while he was overseas. But she had already married Christian before she divorced him. But anyway, I was making threatening phone calls, stated I was going to kidnap my daughter and stomp her head into the ground over and over again until no more blood came out. And it caused her emotional distress, but no police were called. I threatened to stomp her head into the ground over and over again until no more blood came out and no police were called. Oh, I almost forgot this part. I'm sorry. That would have been foolish because this part's where things start to take an even weirder turn. When I was 7 months pregnant with her daughter, my daughter, I pushed her down the stairs. When my daughter was 13 months old, I bit her arm and left a bruise to teach her a lesson. 13 months old, I bit her on the arm and left a bruise to teach her a lesson. Now, this is from the other day, if you remember, when I did the video. Went over all these documents here. This is what the social worker, when the social worker talked to my daughter about me, and this is what my daughter told the social worker. She said, she is my daughter. She said Daniel, that is what she called him, lied about his military experience, was a drug addict and alcoholic, and that he bit her when she was a baby and when she was in the bath as a baby. Now that's a bit different from what this says. Now, keep in mind, my daughter got all this information from her mother. My daughter told social worker that her mother never lied to her about her father. Okay, but yeah, look at this document. Further, the same one, just later on in it, social worker and Juliette were talking. Juliette told social worker there was significant abuse by my daughter by the daughter's father, Daniel, which is me. She stated he is a psychopathic meth head. She said he was given supervised visits by the courts and only did one. She said there was a time he threw her down the stairs when she was pregnant, threatened to beat her with a baseball bat and threw a speaker at her head, which we've yet to see a court document, a restraining order attempt where she alleged that I threw a speaker at her head. There's still one to go, so we're hopeful that claim's in there. Only one restraining order attempt left, but we're hopeful still that it's there. Juliette also informed social worker that Daniel had bitten his daughter on the shoulder once because she'd bitten him. Bit her when she was in the bath. Bit her on the shoulder because she bit me. Bit her on the arm and left a bruise to teach her a lesson. And see, that's another interesting thing. Bitten my daughter on the shoulder. I bit my daughter on the shoulder because she'd bit me. I bit her on the arm and left a bruise to teach her a lesson. This is from Juliette, the restraining order in 2009, case number. Scan down the document. We'll show it all with her name and the case number. Bit her on the arm and left a bruise to teach her a lesson. Bit her on the shoulder because she'd bitten me. But yeah, my daughter says that I bit her while she was in the bath and that her mother never lied to her about her father. Okay, kind of off somewhere, isn't it? Right? Seems a little odd, doesn't it? And we still got one left, so hold on. Let's be fair. Let's go over this last attempt. Now, keep in mind, in 2009, at the time when she filed this document in Monterey County, California, it had been a year and a half since the last time I had seen or really spoken to her, my child. There was a few times, I think 3 conversations with my child in California, and then several times where Juliette had Faith say, I don't want to talk to you, because I could hear her telling her to say it. And then a few times where she answered and said, my daughter didn't want to talk to me, and then she just quit answering altogether. But this one, May 2015. The last time we had spoken, at this point was over 6 years. There was the last time we had even spoken through text, email, any kind of contact whatsoever. 6 years since any type of contact, over 8 years since we had seen each other in person. And this is just your typical restraining order BS, the victim's age. Now my daughter's a victim in this one in 2015. Her go back up, my daughter's information. I'm not giving that out, but then parenting plan, blah, blah, blah. She wants, this is all highlighted just to show that she wanted not only the 10, but she wanted the full. And there had been 6 years of no contact at all. This was in Mason County, Washington. I lived in Missouri at that point, halfway across the country. I still live in Missouri. Still with the same woman. We just don't live in the same spot. Now, describe the most recent violent act, fear or threat of violence, and why the temporary order should be entered today without notice to the respondents. Now keep in mind, 6 years of no contact at all, 8 years of any in-person contact. I haven't heard from Daniel in 6 years because he was using so much meth and other drugs. I thought he had died until a week ago when he started calling my dad and friends, threatening to find myself and my child and kidnap my daughter and beat me like he used to. That's how she phrased it, that I said I'm going to beat her like I used to. In the past, Daniel has beaten me, thrown me down the stairs while pregnant, threatened me and my friends with baseball bats, tried running me over, drove a car through my apartment, and bitten and hit my daughter. Bitten and hit my daughter. See that? Bitten and hit my daughter. He is violent and unstable and constantly threatening to kill me or kick my teeth down my throat. Send me a dead dog's head, and so on. Haven't heard from me in 6 years because I was using so much meth and other drugs. But yet, it was never alleged I was on any drugs or anything in the other documents. And then she claimed I was calling and threatening her dad and herself and her friends. Phone records were submitted. If you want to get the 2015 records from Mason County, you'll see that my phone records were submitted. And you'll notice there was a call to her dad. There was several calls made and trying to get her dad to contact me back. He was refusing my call because he just didn't want to talk to me. So I called his work number several times and basically forced him to call me back. He finally did, and all I asked him was, is your daughter still living in the Tacoma area? Because this was after I learned about Juliette getting arrested for having an explosive go off in her home in 2014 while my daughter and my daughter's brother, Juliette's minor son, were in the home. So this is what she did because I found out she was still in not Tacoma area, but the generalish area, and was going to take her to court for custody. This is her response. For this, past incidents, blah, 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 see above. So again, all this other stuff from the past that was never mentioned until 2015. After she says that she hadn't spoken to me in 6 years, and this is after 8 years of no contact. Describe any violence or threat towards children. I bit my daughter and hit her for biting. Now, my daughter said that I bit her. Juliette says at one point I bit her on the shoulder, another point it was I bit her on the arm, and now it's I bit her and I hit her for biting. Not changed. This is Juliette's document. Case number. Mason County, Washington. Case number. You can't make this up. I bit my daughter and I hit her for biting in 2015. Never before was anything said about that, but it's all, my daughter was never lied to by her mother. Keep that in mind. My daughter says her mother never lied to her. Keep going. Describe any stalking behavior, blah, blah, blah. Numerous phone calls setting up fake Facebook profiles to try and find me on Facebook. Again, court records were our phone records were submitted to the courts. There wasn't any phone calls. Fake Facebook profiles. Nothing was ever submitted to the courts about if any. No profiles were even submitted alleging to be mine from Facebook at that point. So, I mean, but let's continue. ER visits for being thrown downstairs while pregnant. Never before had she made that claim. This is the first time she ever said anything about going to the hospital or anything else. I'll have the audio recording from the restraining order hearing. It's actually coming to me. It should be here within the next few days, I'm hoping. It's coming from Mason County, so I don't know how long it's going to take. But in it, whenever she's asked by the attorney who ended up taking my money and running, Sarah Whitney, about going to the hospital, and you'll hear her change her story 3 different times in a span of about 5 minutes. 3 times she changes her story in a span of about 5 minutes about this alleged part here about going to the hospital that she's never said before. Does the respondent owner possess firearms? Yes, probably. Describe other weapons from the past. Baseball bat, knives, threats of guns. Only ever been the one threat of the gun according to the documents we've looked at, I think it was. I don't know. I lose track of stuff. There's been so much crap said. So, she says right here, if you are requesting that the protection order lasts longer than 1 year, describe the reasons why. Daniel will never stop. I thought he finally gave up over the last 6 years, but now he's found me and is threatening me again. She thought I finally stopped. I haven't heard from Daniel in 6 years because he was using so much meth and other drugs, I thought he had died. I thought he had finally given up. Given up because I died? Or died at one point, but then given up at another? Make up your mind. And then she says drugs and alcohol. Again. 5/7/15, Juliette. That's her signature, Juliette Parker. And that's pretty much it. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting that Juliette's never lied to my daughter, according to the documents that the facilitator, the investigator, put together after her interview with my child. So if my ex-wife, Juliette, has never lied to my daughter, why is there all kinds of conflicting stories? Why is it that some of these claims were never, ever, ever made at all until 2015 for the first time? Why is it that all of a sudden in 2015 the biting morphed into biting and hitting, and it was never mentioned before that there was any hitting? And why is it that all this crap was submitted to the courts? All these past restraining orders were submitted to the courts, and yet I was still basically treated as the bad guy. The courts, the judge basically just ignored everything I said and everything else. The restraining order got kicked right away, but ultimately the judge ended up just ignoring everything else simply because I'm the guy. Because as we get further into things, you'll see more and more of the crap from Mason County, but that's a video for another night. I thank you all for your time and your patience. I'd appreciate it if you'd share this video and let's help get this story out, so hopefully we can change a broken system and people that really are getting victimized by the system and by a malicious mother
to be able to be a part of their children's life. Nobody deserves to be treated that way. Nobody deserves to be forced away from their kids and forced out of their kids' life unjustly. Y'all just seen the restraining order attempts. Y'all see the bullshit she's pulled and knows how she's obviously making things up. I mean, y'all can decide for yourself, but trying to stay as objective as possible. I mean, there's just way too many things that don't make sense based off her own timelines and stories and everything else. But again, we'll get into things more next time. I appreciate your time. Thank you and have a wonderful night. Bye.